Imagine this. You work super hard on one thing only, you improve every single day, you humble yourself, and you consistently eliminate distractions for the next 3 years. Do you think you wouldn't achieve your goals? Think about it. I kind of want to walk you through a little presentation I prepared about the reality of a young entrepreneur and what issues you're going to face and what you're going to have to focus on in order to make it, especially if you're really young. Basically separated this video into 3 parts. First of all, I'm going to talk about consistency, why it's so important, how you can actually stay consistent for a long period of time, why ego is actually stopping you from growing, and how to eliminate distractions. First, I would like to show you a picture of the book Atomic Habits. Basically, this is about decisive moments, and this shows the difference between a good and a bad day and the choices that you make. And a lot of people think that if they make one bad choice, then their day is bad. But it doesn't have to be like that, because even if you make a bad choice, you can still improve the quality of your day with a bunch of good choices afterwards. And so if you make a bad choice once, that does not mean anything at all. Failure is a part of the process. Never let a single bad choice, a single bad decision destroy your consistency. That a lot of people say, okay, I can't stay consistent. Then what advice do you have? I struggle with consistency the most. However, you're consistently sticking to your bad habits right now. So if you're consistent with your bad habits, it's the exact same thing. Just it's going to go down. It's bad choice after bad choice after bad choice, and it leads to you having a bad day overall. And so if you're consistently sticking to your bad habits, then you are consistent with something. You just have to change what you're consistent to. And this is really important to understand. And when I first heard this, it was kind of a super eye-opening moment for me. What's also important when it comes to consistency is the plateau of latent potential. And this basically shows your results over time and what you expect should happen and what actually happens, right? So at first, you expect everything to be linear, you expect everything to be normal, but at first you're not going to make any progress, right? And so there's this valley of disappointment where actually what happens is below what you think should happen. And you have to push through this hard phase right here before you can see the good stuff, before you can see great results. And this here, the valley of disappointment, is where most people fail and most people quit and most people stop. And I promise you, if you just manage to break through this point right here, then I can't guarantee you how long it's going to be. I can tell you if it's a week, I can tell you if it's 10 years. If you stick to it, it's going to be worth it, and you can't let anyone tell you something else. The difference between just becoming 1% worse and 1% better every day, if you actually do the math, you're going to see how massive the difference is if you just do this for a year straight. And then this also shows you how crazy this is. So this is what happens to the results. It compounds. It's an exponential increase in results. It's not linear. It's not 1 week of work, 1 week of results. It's actually years of work, no results, and then boom, you work for 1 day, and then suddenly it keeps working, and then you just get all the results. Again, you just have to stick through this stage of not having any results and expecting more to happen, but nothing happens. And this is what most people cannot do. Now, if you're 1% worse every day, this is what the curve looks like, right? You actually decline like crazy. Now, unfortunately, with a bad decision, you're immediately going to see the bad effect. However, with a good decision, you're going to delay gratification, and you're only later on going to see the effect. And so this is really what makes it so tough to actually stick to the good habits and focus on being consistent on the good stuff and the right things. This here shows the difference between mastering only one habit and then mastering an entire field. So when you basically put in the reps, it sort of gets more and more automatic, and after some time it becomes a habit and actually happens automatically. So you do this automatically and you get better at this, whatever it is. Now, to master a field, you'll need to stack these habits. So every time that you have a habit, you raise your standards and you add in new habits, right? You keep improving and keep stacking good habits and always make it more and more difficult to actually improve and master a field overall. Now, the second topic, which is super important, is your ego. ego. I basically want to summarize to you my 3 favorite chapters of Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. I highly suggest anyone to read that book. Changed my life. So basically the first thing is talk, all right? Stop talking about what you do. Stop telling people about what you do. I promise you life is better if people don't know what you're doing, if no one has a clue of what's going on in your life. And what's actually funny as well is when you tell someone about your goals, about your plans, then your brain already sends out dopamine and it's already going to feel like you achieved something, even though you worked nothing for it. And so this makes it even more difficult to stick to it and to keep pushing for that goal. So don't tell anyone, all right? Don't tell anyone, especially if you haven't made it yet. Once you have made it and once you do see a little bit of success, stay a student. It's so important to constantly humble yourself and remind yourself that there's people that are so much better than you and they are there. There's so much information to get. There's so much more success to actually thrive for. And so you have to constantly, regularly raise your standards. So not only once after watching this video, but actually going ahead regularly, raising your standards time to time again is probably the most important thing that keeps you growing, because it's so easy to become complacent and to become lazy. However, I promise you one thing, and this is very much related to e-com and dropshipping as well. If you don't do the work, you will see the results later on, even if everything is working right now. And the same thing applies for if you do the work. So if you do the work now, you will see the results later. And if you don't do the work, you will see the results later. Even if it works today, even if you get all the Shopify notifications today, if you're lazy at making new creatives today, it will still keep working for the next 2 weeks, but then all of a sudden you're going to ask yourself, where are my sales? What's going on? And then you're going to lose momentum. And why have you failed? Because your ego held you back. You thought you figured it out. Stay a student and raise your standards consistently. And failure is a natural part of the process. You have to understand this and you have to live by this, because if you don't, then your ego is going to stop you from recovering and actually growing from failures, because your ego is not going to let you believe that your failure is your fault, or even in the first place that your failure is a failure. So you have to admit to yourself that it's your fault that you failed. It's no one else's fault but yours. And every single time that you fail, you can grow from it and you can learn from it, even if that means that you have to sometimes step back and go back to the fundamentals, even if that hurts so much, right? And this is something which, if you are not willing to do this, then you will never recover from a failure, and failure will happen. It has already happened for you. It will keep happening. Prepare for it. Even if you're already successful, you will keep failing, and there will be periods of your life where you will be slower, and it's normal and it's okay. And it's super important to be able to admit that to yourself that you're failing and to step back sometimes. Now, what is very common across young entrepreneurs is distractions. It's so easy to get lost in all the content that is out there and all the strategies and all the information that's on the internet and all the bad people around you and all the bad voices and influences. And so this is probably the most important topic of the entire video, because at the end of the day, the time where you're going to grow is when you change your environment. If you join a culture and an environment where it's super normal what you do, in fact, it's the standard, and the standards are even much higher, then it's going to be normal. It's going to feel normal. It's going to be super easy to stick to the good habits. But if the people around you tell you that what you're doing is bad, then obviously, especially as a very young person, it's super easy to believe them, and it's super easy to get distracted and then stop doing it. And right now, it's never been easier to be successful. However, it's also never been easier to be distracted. So you have to go ahead and be able and be cool with sitting down for 10 hours straight and turning off your notifications and just working without looking at the time. You have to practice how to work. And this is something which I'm working on right now. I'm learning how to work. Because trust me, when I heard this for the first time and I actually realized this, I realized I had no idea what real work meant. I had no idea how to work. And so this is something which is kind of related to learning. You can learn how to learn, and then you can also learn how to work. So this is something which is also related to your ego. You sometimes have to admit these things to yourself, and you have to admit that you're not as good as you think at all, and that you can learn so much. And this should not put you down, but actually inspire you and motivate you to get better. And one thing which, one thing which every entrepreneur on their journey realizes is that consuming stuff is not productive. All right. Watching videos about the thing isn't doing the thing. Reading about the thing isn't doing the thing. Talking about doing the thing isn't doing the thing. Only doing the thing is doing the thing. So the more content you consume, obviously, maybe if you take notes, if you rewatch them, whatever it is, then you will actually get that information. But that information is worth absolutely nothing if you don't apply it. So I am a big believer in execution and not strategy. And so I would highly suggest you to reduce the amount of content you consume and actually massively increase the productive work that you do each day. And with that being said, guys, I hope you could learn something from this video. Thank you so much for giving me your time and your attention. And I wish you a beautiful day.